All right, guys. FFPC Playoff Challenge week rolls on here at Ship Chasing. Today, we're talking all about ownership projections. These are going to be incredibly helpful as you build your teams. Pat Crane has done his first pass and is ready to share. We have guest Davis Mattek joining us to talk through it. Let's do it. We got Pat Crane, yards per Gretch, Davis Mattek. Your hair, I haven't seen your hair down like this in a while. It looks good, buddy. You're muted. Pulling a... Uh-oh. Look at this.
I feel like I can hear background noise, but not Davis.
Everyone savor this. These are those few moments where you don't hear Davis talking on a show that he's on. Really just soak it in.
Wow. So you're saying we can just talk and talk and talk and no.
Yeah. No, I'm back to cut you guys off.
It was a joyous few minutes. How's it going, Davis?
It's good. I was just doing some yard work, so I didn't have my hair up. You know, the life of a suburban homeowner.
What yard work? I couldn't. It's 10 degrees here. What is it where you are right now?
Jesus Christ, my lights are a mess. It is also like 10 degrees, but I was cleaning up after my dogs.
Oh, gotcha. Have you started to get excited about the playoff challenge here?
Yeah, I was just registering some teams this morning, and I mean, it feels like there are just some very clear angles where the boomers who play on FFPC are going to be very different than us, which, provided Derrick Henry and the Titans don't make the Super Bowl, I think should be good.
Yes. And, we're going to do the tightrope walk today of unveiling some ownership projections while not necessarily stealing Hasan's thunder for the Boomer Opto reveal tomorrow night. That'll be at our normal time, 9:15. Hasan and Blair will be joining us. Gretch, I know you have been typing up a storm in our Discord chat with Leone and Pat. Any new revelations on this contest since we last talked yesterday?
I wouldn't say any big new ones. I'm excited for Davis's. I mean, he starts with fading Derrick Henry. He knows how to play to the crowd a little bit. Any chance we get to fade Derrick Henry around here, we're very happy to do
I
it.
can't wait for 2022 when he bears me again.
Yes.
Yeah, Pat and I did a podcast the other day where we realized that he's going to turn 29. And Pat, because I was like, Pat, we can't do this again. And Pat's like, he's 29, coming off the foot injury. And I was like, great. All right,
no
bring
brainer.
it on.
We're fading him.
That's right. And Pat, it feels like your first pass at ownership projections, is it in a good spot or still a very fluid situation?
No, I think it's in a good spot. Looking at some projections, a couple different sets of projections, which helped me feel like I landed on the right ownership. I was talking to Hasan, and he's always got his finger on the pulse of the Boomers, so he helped me correct a couple spots. Ben helped me correct a couple spots. So I'm feeling good. Feeling good about some of these like 50-50 situations that I was really unsure about. Once you start like projecting, the teams that need to get faded a lot and where the quarterbacks are going to go, it all sorts to start to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, and so let's just start very high level here. Obviously, you can build a super team in this contest. You can literally pick whatever plays you want. You can hashtag play the best plays, but that
Play whoever you want.
Play whoever you want. But it isn't necessarily your best path to winning this contest. So the conversation we were starting to hit on yesterday with Daigle was, how unique do you have to get? And there's going to be lots of these situations where there's 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 guys on a team that are viable. But one is the better play. They're just going to project for more points. So what we're going to kind of go through, and I think the whole, crux of this contest is how much are you willing to sacrifice from a projected point standpoint, to be a little bit more unique off of the chalk lineup. So, Pat, how are you thinking about that, at least right now, as far as, what the field's doing versus how unique we need to get in some of these spots?
I think that, as doing the ownership just reminded me that you don't have to even get that unique. Because you're looking at Deontay Johnson, for example. I had him at one point at single digit ownership. Now I think that's wrong. I have him in the teens now, but but even then, I mean, team's number one wide receiver will probably be in the teens because of how many people are going to have to fade Pittsburgh. You look at T. Higgins, I think is ultimately probably going to get squeezed because Mixon is someone that is pretty easy to go to. I ultimately think the Arizona running backs are going to be pretty low owned unless we get news.
Oh, for sure.
Because, people just don't want to play that guessing game. So you could probably get, the higher owned of those two will probably be in single digits is how I have it right now. So there's like lots of spots where you're picking kind of a no-brainer, like very middle of the road, like solid DFS play, like nothing crazy. And they'll be, 15% or less.
What do you guys think? Should we just dive in here? I think we decided we're going to go maybe team by team. Obviously, some of these teams won't have as much of a conversation surrounding them. Do you have a spot you want to start, Pat?
Yeah. Well, we can just go by team in alphabetical order if that works for you.
Let's do it.
Okay.
What does that do?
I got the share.
Yeah, alphabetical order. I'm like,
good
luck.
Bring the screen up. I'm not going to make us do it off the top of our head. Yeah.
And maybe give a little zoom here on your screen just so it's a little bit bigger.
Yep. God.
And I should also mention, so Pat's going to, of course, be updating these throughout the week. We're also going to make this available in the Ship Chasing Discord. If you are a member, you will have access to that. We will post that in there and you can get the updated version as the week progresses. So right out of the gate, Pat, we have Arizona DST as the most popular Arizona play.
That's how I have it right now.
People want to fade Arizona,
right? Because they're going to be playing chalk. I have Kupp as the chalkiest player that I think I've ever projected in the contest. And what we saw last year was that LA was the chalk defense going against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who are both it was sort of like pick up one of those wide receivers, don't think about it too hard, play the defense on the other side and move on. And I think we're going to get that this year, except you just pick Kupp. Kupp's kind of a no-brainer. And then, you can talk yourself in a scenario where it's like Stafford throws a pick six, Kupp smashes, Rams win. I've already got a huge lead. So I think Arizona will ultimately be the chalk D. Now, I think that'll change if we get Connor. Like Connor going so low is basically like bringing up Arizona as a fair amount of fades. The kicker I have fairly high as well. Not too much pure fade, but I just think that no one's going to want to jam Zach Ertz. Pete was yelling at me and Davis for touting him in the summer. People just don't like
let's
him.
not bring this up.
It's a shame that people didn't want Ertz Gerald.
It's unbelievable, but we can't change people's minds here. We just got to predict what they're going to do, and I don't think that Ertz is going to be like 30% owned, which is kind of what you need in order for some kind of fade not to be popular unless we get Connor.
Davis, Scratch, anything jump out to you looking at this Cardinals run?
Well, this is it's already interesting to me because basically a huge chunk of this contest is figuring out which dog can not only win, but maybe even win multiple games. And to me, Arizona is like a great definition of that because they have great players. Like when you start criticizing Arizona, you basically start with their head coach. But if Cliff just like randomly runs into not being a donkey for one game, like Arizona is a good team. And so like, could they make the Super Bowl? Can they beat the Buccaneers? Like, yeah, to me, they easily can. Like, I wonder if
they have to go through Green Bay most likely.
They have a horrible route. But I mean, but even 2 games of Kyler, 2 games of Kirk, like that is pretty interesting to me. And then, James Conner's been playing through this heel injury. Like there certainly is a scenario where Edmonds is back, Connor re-injures his heel, Edmonds doesn't play, Connor's in there. Like both of those are pretty intriguing spots to me.
I look at it and see the receivers. I mean, I think even if they're one and done, I mean, people are going to be really interested in playing Ertz or the D like we're projecting here and the kicker. But, I mean, Kirk is vaguely interesting, certainly. Can hit on a long play and be their highest scoring player. I mean, I'm not going to tout AJ Green, but, like, if you want to play AJ Green in the $35, like AJ Green could be their optimal play in a loss. No, I like the winning thing. The other thing I would say for them on in a scenario where, like, maybe you're playing Kyler, I think I would play it as San Fran beating Dallas because, like Pat mentioned, Arizona would have to go to Green Bay. Otherwise, I'm not really giving Philly a great chance to beat Tampa, but you need one of those upsets to get.
Yeah, you could do it with the Tampa loss as well.
You could do it with the Tampa loss as well. But either way, you need one of those upsets to get Arizona to not have to go to Lambeau in the second round. And then, I mean, even if they have to go to Lambeau in the conference championship, there's probably paths to Kyler being the optimal QB with Green Bay then being the Super Bowl.
Run so much.
Yeah, like maybe Rodgers isn't that great in a 3-game scenario. Maybe it's a Green Bay Tennessee Super Bowl, and so there's not necessarily a clear AFC quarterback. And Kyler has some big games in their 2 wins and get in their conference championship run. And, like, you know, obviously in the Green Bay Super Bowl, Adams is going to pop really, really big. And so there could be some ways that Kyler could work that way. But, yeah, I would probably play it with an upset in one of the other NFC games.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and Silas notes that, you know, if Evans is out, Connor will be a smash. If Evans is out, we're going to have to scrap this whole everything about Arizona is wrong if Evans is out.
Yeah.
So the chalk D is going to come way down. No one's going to want to play it like that. Everyone's still going to play Cup, but then you can play it as kind of a high-scoring game with Connor. He'll be super chalky. The Ds will have to go somewhere else. It's going to change up basically a ton about the entire contest. New England will probably catch a lot more.
Is this game on Saturday or Sunday?
I think it's Monday. Right?
Yeah.
You're right. Game. It is the Monday game. So we're not going to know.
We're probably not going to know.
We're not going to know.
Right, which is
so that's like a super interesting angle, right? It's like I'm playing James Conner at 11%, but he might be, you know, if that came out tomorrow, he'd be what, 35-ish or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, running back is pretty thin. It's something that we're going to go through overall. And so, yeah, he'd probably get jammed.
I think 35. He'd be – so Dobbins was in the mid-20s last year. Nick Chubb was 32% last year. Those feel like pretty decent comps for Connor. I think he'd come in around there. But Akers was like, 10% last year. So, you know, you could end up in kind of an Akers situation where you're taking on risk, but you're getting a lot of outsized upside.
Yeah, that will be an interesting one. Let's who do we have up next? Buffalo?
Yeah, Buffalo. Let me get them.
Just some amazing spreadsheet work from Pat Curran.
Pat is a freak in the sheets. Man in the streets,
got
a freak in the spreadsheets.
So this was one we were talking to Daigle yesterday on the show, and he was talking about Devin Singletary. Pete, you were mentioning Devin Singletary's underdog ADP coming up. Ultimately, I still have Diggs as the chalk here. Part of me just feels like if they were priced, you know, at the same price on DraftKings this week, like everyone would be jamming Diggs. Like, I don't know. It's just hard for me to imagine that Singletary would be played ahead of Diggs straight up. I have Allen slightly ahead of where he was last year, but it does feel like it's kind of harder for me to. Oh, no, sorry. I have him behind. He was at 38% last year. I did bump him up closer to where he was, but I have him down partly because Singletary's stealing ownership.
And Mahomes is going to be more popular this year.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's getting a 4th game, so it changes the quarterback equation a little bit.
And Tyreek and Kelsey are both banged up.
Right. I have Mahomes up. That's been. We'll get there, but that's one that I was struggling with.
KCRB is not pulling any ownership this year either.
No, they're not. But I was struggling with Mahomes because I want to bump him up more. I probably will ultimately bump him up more, but I wanted to kind of check in with people before I did that because he was at 15% the last 2 years. I have him above that now, but it's hard for me to project for like 28% or something, you know, when he's been historically not that high owned.
But the major difference is the last 2 years they had a bye.
Yeah.
Right. And so it does change the equation. They're favored to win the AFC over Tennessee, who has the bye, and yet for this contest, you get that extra game out of Mahomes. So it is pretty unique. I could see him in the high 20s.
Yeah,
I mean, Mahomes feels like the best play of every available player. So do with that what you will for ownership.
All right. Well, that's going to have
Davis coming in and taking a KC player, and specifically
Chief
Patrick
super
Mahomes
fan Davis Mattek just said he's the best play in the tournament. So.
Well, just because it's fairly unique with the way the buys have changed. Has Mahomes had the buy every year they've made the playoffs? I'm pretty sure that's correct.
I think so.
So by the way, like the markets agree with this. The markets have the Chiefs as a far outsized favorite, considering that they have to play an extra playoff game. Like they are ahead of the Titans in the Super Bowl market, which is like, just if you think about probability, that actually makes no sense.
Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.
So,
like the market is just giving them the win.
When I ultimately steal some ownership from Allen and give some of it to Mahomes, where do you think that goes between Diggs and Singletary?
I think Singletary.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing I was, Daigle had a pretty high forecast for Singletary. The one thing I was mentioning with the underdog stuff, a lot of what's pulling the Singletary ownership up is, well, one, running back being gross, but two, people often, the Diggs Allen start is just a very normal start in the underdog. And so then when you're looking for your next Buffalo Bills player, like Singletary's the guy, because Knox and Beasley and Gabriel Davis are all cheap. So I think Singletary just keeps creeping up because those Josh Allen Diggs starters are like, oh, I want to grab my next Bill. So I'm not quite sure how transferable it is to this contest, but that coupled with the fact that DFS projection systems have loved Singletary the past few weeks, he's paid off on those projections. I think the field is definitely more comfortable with Singletary as a play than they ever would have been even 4 weeks ago.
That's a good point.
But not
I want to know
compared.
Running.
Do you think he'll be
DK.
above Diggs, or do you think? Do you think I need to close the gap?
I can't imagine him flipping him. That would seem crazy to me, but I would be pro closing the gap.
I was just going to note, I looked up Mahomes and he has had a bye every, they haven't, last time they played the wild card round, they had Alex Smith at QB. So we have not seen him in this contest as a wild card quarterback.
All right. Well, Allen's coming down after this conversation and Singletary will come up.
Yeah. The thing too is just like thinking about, the recency bias and how people are kind of viewing the Bills right now. But let's move on to the Bengals and we can discuss more Mahomes when we get to the Chiefs. Walk us through what we're looking at here with the Bengals.
Yeah. So first run didn't have Mixon as the chalk, but as you go through this, running back is kind of tough. You're going to end up like, do you want to play Najee Harris or Josh Jacobs? Most people aren't going to want to go to the Eagles running back. We just talked about Arizona being totally up in the air. And I think that's ultimately going to push people to Mixon over Chase and Higgins. Projection systems have to split these two. I think ETR has Higgins slightly ahead, actually. I think Chase will be more popular than Higgins, but still, it's kind of one of those things where, especially with Mixon, you can talk yourself into like, I'm playing this for shootouts along the way where Mixon's getting the touchdowns, but then if I actually get a run out of Cincinnati, Mixon's probably going to be really, really valuable.
Valuable.
Yeah. So you kind of feel like you have more outs with Mixon in some ways too. And I ultimately do think he'll be the chalk. Burrow, maybe this is a touch high for Burrow with Mahomes coming up, but I don't know. Just the ceiling that he showed off the last 2 weeks that he played is so high. I think he'll catch some ownership.
Yeah, Davis, how do you feel about like the Chase versus Burrow stuff? Because I do agree, just from what Chase did more recently, is going to be more front of mind. Like, I think if you flipped the like Jamar Chase and
the runs that they had, no, I think you're right. What's most interesting to me is I'm looking at realistic upsets from round one, and I feel like the Raiders can win this game. Like, would not be that surprising. I know Zach Taylor got a lot better at coaching throughout the course of the year, but it certainly does feel like he could get into, a playoff game and be like, we got to establish it. We got to ball control. We got to punt. And then, all of a sudden Deshaun Jackson is like streaking to the end zone in the fourth quarter and they're down 10 points and he just doesn't know what to do. So I wonder if going with McPherson or the defense here or something like that as one of your as kind of like one of your punt spots. That's a little interesting to me from like
Davis,
a game
I
theory
am
perspective.
very excited about the Bengals, but that picture you just painted was way too good.
Can't you see it?
Definitely
Can't you see it?
that.
And Joe Burrow's on the sideline with his helmet off, and he just looks pissed, and like he just
He does
staring
have a good
daggers.
pissed face.
Yeah, like I can just see it, and this is always the worst game. The first AFC playoff game on Saturday, it's always the worst game. This was the game that the Texans used to be in every year. This was the game that who was that Raiders backup quarterback? Connor Cook had to start a game. This is always the absolute worst playoff game.
That one Texans game was against Josh Allen a few years ago when he tried that lateral, 20
oh my
yards
God.
downfield.
Now that was a great game. That ended
was
up being a great
fantastic
game. Yeah.
No, but I will say, I mean, the way you paint it makes a lot of sense. I'm so happy or confident about the Bengals in part because I feel like they have sort of just crossed the Rubicon. They were so good in their last two games passing.
So good.
Burrow had a comment this week. I just on Twitter, I think this morning actually, where they were asking him about Joe Mixon in the run game, and he said something like, "Yeah, like how helpful that is," and then also what did he call them? The freaks we have on the outside. Immediately referenced Chase and Higgins. I think the mentality has changed here a little bit, where they understand that Chase and Higgins are so vital to them winning. I'm hopeful, at least.
Yeah. Pat, what is because I think one of the big thing, my guess is people feel pretty comfortable playing this game as a shootout. I mean, when you do look at the markets, people are overconfident that the Bengals are going to win based on just like the underdog ADPs I'm seeing. But I do think people might do lots of Mixon in Jacobs or Jacobs and Jamar Chase and play this game as a shootout.
I think you're going to get a fair amount of that. I have the Raiders. I can actually go over to the team breakdown here. And I have the total fades. Actually, I didn't paste it, but I have the odds to advance. But these are sorted by their odds to advance. And you can see, Las Vegas compared to New England is, a lower fade, even though New England has a much better chance of advancing.
I'm not playing New England on any of my teams. I don't think there's one however many teams I do, I'm not playing Patriots players. Literally, what is the point?
Can they not win?
I think of the dogs, other than the Steelers, I think they are in the toughest spot because if they get down 10 points, that's just it. There just is nothing they can do. There's not a way Bill Belichick can Jedi mind trick his way out of a 10-point deficit with this team. I'll never forget, Hayden Winks summed up the Patriots perfectly. He said that if the Patriots got into a 53-man race against every other team, they would finish last, which is that is the perfect way to describe them as a team.
Yeah.
Damian Harris would be fine.
The only thing I agree with you, Davis. It's very hard for me to imagine them winning, but I will say too, and if you're making, 3 to 5 teams, I think making stands like that is completely fine. If you're making a bunch, you really start to get in dicey territory if you're just completely Xing out a team.
Okay. So a couple comments about Boyd being low owned. He probably is a little bit low owned, but where does it come from? Because where do you think Burrow comes in? Is this a little too high at 12%, or is that?
I don't think that looks low owned. Who's clicking Tyler Boyd?
Who is clicking Tyler Boyd? Even when he had the long TDs the last few weeks, he only had 5 targets. I've always loved Tyler Boyd.
His target share on the year is 15%.
Did he ever outscore, even with the long TDs, did he ever outscore one of Higgins or Chase in a game? I don't think he did. Oh, there was one game.
He did outscore T a couple times when T was going through.
No, I just meant the higher scoring of the two, and he did. He was.
What about Mixon? Was he
once?
Did he outscore Mixon in that game?
Probably not. I don't think there's really been a game where Tyler Boyd has been the highest scorer on their team.
And that's what you need. You need him to because Mixon, Chase, and Higgins are all going to be really popular, and Boyd's going to be, or Burrow's going to be somewhat popular. So you need him to be the optimal play. It's pretty thin.
He did. It was a 15-10 win over the Broncos in Week 15. He was their highest scorer. If they do that, then I'll just pack it up. No, this does actually remind a little bit of the Juju play from last year. I'm so afraid of that.
No. Tyler Boyd has never been. Not with these set of teammates. He's never gotten the theoretical type of usage that Juju has gotten.
Yeah, I think that Burrow stuff looks right. I mean, he's coming off of one of the most insane finishes to a season. He feels to me a lot like how maybe a Russell Wilson would feel in previous years, where people can talk themselves into this really high ceiling Super Bowl run from the wild card spot. And people are just really on board with the Bengals getting like 2 shootout games right now. Like everyone's just convinced themselves of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
All right.
Cowboys.
ETR has CD projected for the most points right now, but it's like very close between Lamb and Zeke. And ultimately, I think the running back need pushes Zeke ahead. Then a pretty big gap down to Schultz, Cooper. Dak, I think, could come up from here a touch. I think he's a decent play. But there's other options like Kyler, like Burrow. Like if you want to go for that kind of underdog to make a run bet, you have other options. So yeah, ultimately I think most of the ownership will condense on Zeke and Lamb.
Yeah,
I like Dak over Kyler pretty comfortably. I mean, their odds to based on the betting market are about double to make the Super Bowl than Arizona. Some of that's because they're at home in round 1 and as a 3 seed. Like if something were to happen to the Bucs, or even if they're able to go to Tampa Bay and win in round 2 and the Packers got upset, they could get another home game down the stretch as a 3 seed. Arizona as a 5 seed in all likelihood is making the run all the way on the road. See what I'm saying? Like Dallas could actually end up with 2 home games potentially. And they got a good defense too. So Dak pops to me here. Amari and Schultz obviously do too.
See, the problem with Schultz is he just got insta-cucked when Blake Jarwin came off the IR. Like that looks high to me based on he ran a season low route share and snap share immediately when Blake Jarwin came off the IR.
Yeah, I agree with you, Davis, on that. Although I just think recency bias just absolutely plagues people, and Dalton Schultz has been like really solid. I was going to ask you, boots on the ground, Dallas Cowboys, like where's the sentiment, do you think, on these Cowboys? Because you look at these top 5-6 guys, you can remove the defense. Like no one ever really separated as like the alpha fantasy guy.
People are out on Amari. I will say that people are done with Amari Cooper. And it's so funny. Like, Zeke also just useless. I mean, Zeke has just been useless for the last 6 weeks of the NFL season, basically. I think maybe he had one good. I think he had a 2 touchdown game dispersed in there. But it is just funny to see him more owned than Lamb, more owned than Dak, more owned than Amari, when you know what you're getting. I guess the devil's advocate argument, I couldn't come up with that term, would be that if the Cowboys win 2 or 3 playoff games, I mean, you just know that they've given Zeke his touches in there. Like, you just know beyond a shadow of a doubt they have spent time feeding Zeke, because that's what they do whenever things are going well.
It's so funny watching Zeke try and turn a corner this year, though. Like,
it's not that funny.
I mean, like, if it's well blocked up the
That's pretty
middle,
funny.
he can get like a 10-yard touchdown run if he can run straight up the middle. But you ask him to go around the corner, and he's literally never going to make it around.
It's true. Sometimes he looks shot out of a cannon on one run. I think it was week 17 maybe, where it was actually called back due to holding. But he looked shot out of a cannon, but it was right up the gut. Just like he just.
Well, I read an NBC Sports Edge blurb that run you were talking about was his highest game speed that had been recorded all year.
12 miles per hour.
It was like 16, to be fair to him.
There's an interesting comment in chat about Dallas fade being interesting. I think, and I mean, I think the Lions agree that
retire yourself, DJ Richard.
San Fran is live to win in round 1. Absolutely. I know Davis is, Davis
they are, but if San Francisco wins this game, one of these Dallas guys has gotten 25 plus, like one of the skill position guys.
Possibly, but San Fran can win games through running the ball and controlling the clock. Dallas has had some games where they've looked really bad offensively.
I'm not even
I think you play the defense then.
Davis already bought his KC Dallas Super Bowl tickets. He's already.
Can you imagine?
Pat, one thing I think we should address, because I've just noticed it pop up a few times, once with Tyler Boyd, then a Galaxy Brain Cedric Wilson. I think we should just kind of emphasize that level of Galaxy braining is just not needed in a contest like this, especially on an offense where the ownership is already incredibly spread out.
What about the galaxy brain of playing Pollard over Zeke and saying when the bullets are flying and they have to win these games, they're going to say, Zeke, we love you. We know you're making all this money, but you literally cannot play right now.
You can see where I stand on that galaxy brain, Davis. I don't give many guys 1%, but I gave Pollard 1%. It's coming from me.
But
I want to throw in on
I like
Schultz. You guys were talking about this like this is too high as a mistake. I think I would still want to be overweight on this. I'm not really buying the routes thing. I mean, you can say immediately you got cut. They crushed Philly in a game they didn't really need to be going all out in. I know the
That's
other guys
fair.
mostly played, but like when Jarwin was healthy earlier this year, Schultz was still playing, like beat him out. They started like 50-50. He started to beat him out. And has been so good all year. I think it'd be really kind of bizarre if he just couldn't be productive still. I don't know. I think he's pretty sneaky still.
What about Cooper's 11%? Because I'll probably bump up Dak like maybe 2%, something like that. Should that come from Cooper? Should that come from Schultz? Where's that come from?
Maybe Schultz.
I agree with Davis's take. I just can't imagine anyone being excited to click Amari Cooper.
Yeah, that 11% feels very high to me.
Okay, that's where Dak. Because I think I'm going to raise Dak a bit.
All right, let's move on.
We're gonna have to play so much Amari. Leone's gonna make us play so much Amari.
We are.
Leone loves Amari.
That's the juju play is Amari.
Is Amari.
Because Pittsburgh didn't have a running back last year. They just had 3 receivers that we were deciding between.
All right. Green Bay Packers, massive projection on Devontae Adams. Can anyone see this not being correct? It seems like that's
no, it's correct, but just feed me AJ Dillon. Feed this to me. AJ Dillon, it's cold. It's in Lambeau. I mean, come on. Feed AJ Dillon 1%, bro. Sign me up.
Davis, how many of these are you doing?
I'm going to do more now.
Davis, you said cold. You said cold. That's AJ Dillon.
I'm just correcting for Davis's entries here.
Yeah.
Davis is going to be tilting like Dillon's going to have 2 touchdowns and still be chasing Adams in points, and he's going to be tilting that third team.
No, but you can make up the wide receiver points so much easier than you can make up the running back points.
That's true.
The trouble with AJ Dillon is that you have to have that script play out like 3 times because he's not getting there in a round one loss.
If it plays out twice and he gets... So let's say he has 1 smash, right? One of these games, whichever one it is, he gets 1 smash, and then he just gets 11 in the other 2 games, like 11 on average. What odds? So that's like what?
I'm taking Adams.
Yeah, you're still a dog.
You're still just a huge dog to Adams.
Yeah.
Like Dillon, like we're gonna watch the first half of the first game. Dillon, I mean, this is Davis's perfect world. Dillon's gonna get like 10 to 12 carries and have like 70 yards and be smashing, and Davis can be like
body blows,
right? And
body blows.
2-minute warning: Devontae Adams is gonna catch 4 passes for 40 yards to set up a field goal, and he's gonna be ahead of Dillon at the half. And that's
I turn into such a boomer whenever AJ Dillon comes up. I just I totally get I get the FFPC ethos whenever AJ Dillon comes up.
Why is it that we're in on Dillon and never we're on Henry? I don't really
because
get
his
that.
price.
Because
AJ Dillon goes 8 rounds later.
Because he's not the 102.
He's arbitrage Derrick Henry, bro.
Yeah, he really is actually.
So is there anything else interesting to discuss with the Packers? I guess Rodgers is the other interesting thing, and how much people feel confident, because people are, in on the Packers making the Super Bowl. It's just hard to envision him outscoring Adams.
Especially with the Titans.
And this is where he was last year, too, 10% with the bye. So,
especially with the Titans not being like a really popular 1 seed on the other side, like it's really hard to see unless it is the Titans, then you can see Rodgers. But whoever it is, the Bills, the Bengals, whoever who makes them run, obviously Kansas City, if one of them, it's not the Titans, you're talking about an extra game as well. And those guys don't necessarily have the same concentration of weapons as Adams. I mean, those scenarios where it's Green Bay, KC, Green Bay, Buffalo, it just feels like it's Adams, Allen, Adams, Mahomes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, if you've got I mean, in a weird way, Aaron Rodgers, he just doesn't have that much of a chance of beating Adams over a long stretch. And then you obviously don't want to lose your quarterback. So you need them to go to the Super Bowl. But over that many games, Adams is probably going to have a blow up. Your out, I guess, is that Rodgers is the one you needed in the Super Bowl, and gets the double scoring.
Yeah, Alan Lazard, MVS, Equinemy St. Brown, they all make their appearances, and Rodgers.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
Good. I was just gonna say, so you think 0% on fade and kicker and DST, or 1% total on those three?
Well,
the number one seeds never get faded.
Yeah, they really don't. Last year, I think the two guys with a bye had about 1% combined ownership between DST, but between hard fade, DST, and kicker, they had 1% fade. So
yeah. Also, just to be clear with these, this isn't what we think they should be. Our lineups are going to be what we think they should be. These are what we
I have no Aaron Jones love. I want that on the record.
And the problem is just what an incredible play Devontae Adams is. So it's just going to be very hard for any of these non-Adams Packers to pull significant ownership.
I mean, if Adams isn't the guy, and like Davis is saying, he plays AJ Dillon, and they probably got to lose in their one game, and
exactly.
Dylan has
the problem is that Dylan absolutely cannot get there in a loss. I don't think.
Right,
but
so
Jones can. So
yeah, Jones can.
If you're playing, let's say you're playing Dallas to win, but you want to bet against Green Bay. Well, Arizona most likely is going to Green Bay if they win, so you'd play, or you could play Kupp and Aaron Jones and just hope. I mean, no one's really going to play Stafford, but essentially what I'm saying is in a Kyler lineup, for example, you're probably betting against Green Bay. So in that scenario, you could go with Aaron Jones, who you need them to be one and done if you're taking Aaron Jones. I guess Aaron Jones has enough touchdown equity that over 2 games he could be the guy. But it feels pretty.
But he would have to have one of those signature Aaron Jones games where he scores 4 touchdowns on 12 touches.
I was just going to emphasize though the ownership is going to be massive. Your 81% here is huge, and so if you did hit that correctly,
it's a huge.
You have the field dominated on that. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to whoever is next in the alphabet.
All right, KC.
All right, this is Davis's time to shine.
Oops, I gotta get Green Bay out of there.
What was the sentiment on the Chiefs heading into the playoffs last year? Was it all Kelsey coming off of just that massive year?
It was all Kelsey. He was 70% owned or something.
And there was a little bit of Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be Damian Williams.
Early week, it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be the contrarian play. And then I think by late week, a lot of people were like, wait, Tyreek Hill's not even going to be played a lot. And I think he was sort of the contrarian pivot late.
Exactly. Tyreek Hill was a contrarian pivot last year. Don't get too off the board here. You don't need to be playing.
I know the people. This is the second time a Cedric Wilson Galaxy Brain play has been floated in the chat, guys. You don't
need it.
I told you guys his 2 touchdowns in week 17. We're gonna get him 5%. Leone's no, I think it's still gonna be.
I think you're right now, Greg.
I'm gonna put him in. I'm making a note to add Cedric Wilson to 2%.
The people love him.
Questions.
They love him.
Great Boise State player.
All right, Davis, boots on the ground. How does this look to you here?
I mean, Mahomes looks low to me, and Kelsey looks low. I feel like we're basically setting up for the same thing with Tyreek, where he did just get hurt, right? So everyone saw him on that because it was a Saturday national TV game. Everyone saw him limping around. That might have been McCole Hardman's first ever 100-yard game. It almost has to be his first 100-yard game that he just had against the Denver Broncos.
No way. So, he's had some long touchdowns. Come on, man. He had to have had at least one more.
It had that. I don't even know, but I know. That's got to be his.
It's probably right. It's gonna be so depressing to find.
Here, I can find out right now. Career game log. Yep, first 100-yard game.
Oh no, he had 97 once before and 96, but that was it. That was his career.
So So, I mean, I really think with Kansas City, you are choosing from Kelsey, Tyreek, and Mahomes.
Yeah.
And these Kelsey looks low, Tyreek looks high, Mahomes looks a little bit low. But even the way these are projected, I'm just looking at this going like Mahomes is just such a smash because they've even expanded this year the level to which they are willing to troll you on offense, like throwing touchdowns to offensive tackles. Michael Burton is getting carries. They're using I right now for the game this weekend against the Steelers, I have them projected to use 4 running backs. Like they are just ready to troll you to death, and Mahomes is the beneficiary of all that trolling.
Well, and as Davis talks it out, just because we don't have the sentiment on Kelsey heading into this year, we mentioned the Tyreek Hill injury stuff. I could see Mahomes really get pushed up as people are like, I don't know who to play between Kelsey and Hill. I'll just play Mahomes.
I was thinking that, Pat. Hill more around 20. That looks good.
And
Kelsey you're higher, but I don't know from where.
You're not getting any. Maybe in years past, some of the running backs would have pulled some Pringle, Hardman, whatever would have pulled some. No one's doing that this year. Like those guys are stone cold zeros.
Right, because I mean, you have so much uncertainty around the backfield. 1, a split. 2, both guys banged out.
Both are hurt.
No one's excited to play either of those.
What about that?
Yeah, that looks great. It's funny.
Better.
You move Edwards-Helaire down, and then it made me think about it. And I'm like, man, 3% on not those guys, that might even wind up high. Like, can you see?
I know. Just at a certain point, you have to have like something.
Right, you got to project.
There's gonna be like 0.25% hard.
Let me tell you, if I'm not clicking on Clyde Edwards-Helaire's name, no one's clicking on Clyde Edwards-Helaire's name.
Yeah.
Although that's sort of like the 0.25% Darrell Williams gets and all that.
Davis, you want a tragic Mecole Hardman stat from looking at that game log that we just did? His last career high was his 3rd career game in 2019, week 3.
I know, I know. I've been chasing the dragon this whole time.
He hasn't had another game to beat his 3rd career game in 3 seasons, basically. And then he finally did it. Oh.
He came up big when they needed him.
Let's move on.
All right, we got LA. Yeah.
LA, I think, is fascinating, similar to Green Bay.
Yeah.
So LA, even bigger chalk. I just don't see how you get off Cup.
I think it's pretty easy to see why you wouldn't play him.
Van Jefferson.
Who are you playing?
because unlike the Packers, where you're like, there's just no way one of these other guys can blow up over 2 or 3 games. I think it's pretty easy to see one of the running backs just totally smashing over 2 games. Odell scoring 3 touchdowns in 2 games. Higbee scoring 2 touchdowns and being like the tight end that you needed. Like now Kupp is obviously even a better play than Adams in terms of like per game projection, but the Packers just don't even like have enough offensive volume, and the way they call plays is not even designed to have other guys do well. But I think Stafford, Akers, I would lean Sony, Odell. Like I think all of those guys can be smashes.
Everyone listen to Davis.
It's such a tough needle to thread, right? Because even in a loss, Kupp could just massively outscore every option.
Yes. Sony's only way of doing it would be to score 5 touchdowns in the playoffs, right? Doing what?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say in the one game. I was like,
no, doing like what Lenny did for the Bucs, basically.
It's just like, look, this is dumb, and Davis is right. There's variance, but I open up his game log, and
it's insane.
I'm gonna play Cooper Kupp.
I mean, he's Calvin Johnson, dude.
It's ridiculous.
The interesting thing about Sony is that, like, as the playoffs go on, you would expect Akers probably to take more from him, but that's not the play. You're just hoping, you're praying they lose, and so you get Sony in the one game where he's going to get the most touches, and then you're done.
So let me throw this out. They lose to the Cardinals. Cooper Kupp gets his 30. Sony gets 19. Who would you rather have?
Kupp.
Even given that you feel much better about your ability to get other wide receiver points as opposed to running back points?
Not that much better.
There's 4 flexes.
Yeah, there's 4 flexes.
Yeah.
It's the optimal in that scenario is going to have Cup in a flex spot. I think there's going to be other running back points.
Okay.
Yeah. It would have to be like 2 points or something to where you'd take Sony for the positional advantage.
Yeah, if you fade Cooper Kupp, you don't need to play Cedric Wilson.
And the Cooper Stafford dynamic is like an even more exaggerated version of the Rodgers and Adams one, where it's just like impossible.
Stafford's like never getting there without bringing.
He's dead. Like, yeah, he has to, because you also have to think through, if this team goes on a run, how are they actually going to win, right? And so, like, when you take Matthew Stafford, you need them to probably go to the Super Bowl, at least the conference championship. What scenarios is Stafford the guy you need a quarterback and Cup had a bad run? None.
Yeah,
right. It seems like a really tough play. And you have him at 3%. Yeah. Yep. I'm sure that seems about
I might
right.
be light Cup, but no one ever comes in above 90. But I don't know. It's hard to see who else we play.
Yeah. All right. Not much interesting to talk about. The Rams. Who are we on to?
Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think the one big thing, there's not much to say, but to emphasize with Cup is like in a loss is usually where the chalk doesn't work. Because when a guy's that good of a play, the more games they play, the more likely he is gonna, he's gonna be part of them winning. The cream's gonna rise to the top, all that stuff. But in a loss, also Cup is so hard to see not being the top scorer. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're gonna go to him when other stuff isn't working. He's just gonna start dialing in on Cup. It's just really hard. It's really hard.
All right. Las Vegas here. Is this our first fade as the top projection?
I think so. Arizona, I had the defense is the top. So, a soft fade is the top, but this is the first hard fade is the top. Josh Jacobs, again, just gets you that running back that's much harder to fill. Tight end is like way easier to fill. I actually had to kind of like lower tight end somewhat significantly from the first ownership run that I did, because I was way above where the field was last year in terms of their tight ends. I think they'll be above where they were last year, but I also overprojected tight end last year, so didn't want to like massively overproject that, which brings Waller down and Jacobs up, even though in projections, I think they'll be pretty close. But if you're going to play the Raider, I think you're doing it to get a little bit different running back and fill one of those spots. So I think Waller will ultimately come in around this. This is one of the ones I thought through a fair amount, and I feel pretty good about the 15%, even though I think it makes Waller pretty interesting.
Yeah,
this is another one where the wide receiver.
I love Waller there.
Yeah, Waller's great there, but this is another one where the low-owned wide receiver kind of pops to me. I think we've seen that a couple times now, where it's like, okay, Renfrow at 2%. We're saying that they're likely to lose in the first round. I mean, obviously they could advance. We just talked through that scenario. Davis liked that scenario as a possibility.
I don't like it. That's not a world I want to live in, but I'm just telling you how it works.
How Zach Taylor does things. But if they do lose, I can see a lot of paths to I mean, Renfrow is a lot closer to a coin flip with Jacobs and Waller in a loss than those ownerships. We're talking 5 times. 10
well, Jacobs
times
in a loss is probably mega dust, which is interesting about this.
Yeah. Well, do you think people go Waller? Because I mean, the FFPC does their elite tight ends.
But
Waller...
I feel like Jacobs maybe looks a smidge high, and Waller looks a little low.
The only thing you got to remember about Waller, though, for FFPC brain, I mean, he burned everyone who drafted him this year. He's been out of sight, out of mind. He's going undrafted in these underdog drafts. Granted, obviously 1.5 here, but I feel like sentiment on Waller is at an all-time low.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I agree.
I don't think Waller's going to be 9 times Renfrow, which you just shifted and got to. I mean, that just doesn't seem. I would want Renfrow in that scenario.
To me, the Waller ownership is going to come from the guys that get really excited to roll out like 4 tight ends. Because every year there's a few, they're like, holy shit, I can just roll out 4 stud tight ends. And that someone's going to toss Waller into that. But I just don't think a lot of people are going to even get past, Jacobs to him.
It's really sad we're not having the Lamar Jackson versus Mark Andrews conversation, considering this run that Andrews just ripped off Like it's a bummer that that's not an element.
And we're watching the Steelers in the playoffs instead. Yeah, it's a pretty big bummer.
Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, having the Chargers would have been so fun. I mean, talk about a fun team for this contest. It would have been like a more interesting version of the Bengals.
Carlson seems low. Silas says, kicker's tough. Carlson might be the chalk kicker, which would take some from the fade. But I think right now I have Nick Folk coming in pretty high. But I think that would probably come down if we get Connor, because then there will be more New England defense. So everything kind of gets shifted around. But that's probably right that Carlson's probably a little low.
That makes sense.
All right. Who do we have up next? New England?
New England.
All right. Skip it.
I mean, the Boomers are going to love to play Damian Harris. I mean, we got to admit that.
And there's a lot of DST kicker at full fade. I mean, that's like, what, 70%?
I should take it back. I could see playing the Patriots defense. They get a pick six and a 40-7 loss.
So the thing that's fascinating to me about the Patriots defense, and I was wondering about this too, like if Allen is so popular, will people use New England defense against Allen in their lineup?
But they should.
Yeah.
I have it lower than I would because of that concern.
Right. If it was a better, like if they were going against Burrow or like basically anyone else, they would be the chalk D by a lot, I would assume.
I think this is right. And it's just another one where I'm sitting here going, I mean, if they lose in the first round, Jacoby Myers could catch 8 passes. Hunter Henry could catch 6 and 2 touchdowns. And
what does 8 for 45 and no touchdowns do for you though?
Might get you on the optimal. I don't know.
Well, maybe, I guess.
8 for 45 that's a real low 8 up.
I don't know. I just am not anticipating the Patriots being particularly competitive here, but I think that maybe that's like a minority opinion though.
If you were to Galbrain or, the Patriots because I agree with Davis's thesis, right? Like if they're down, they're donezo, but does that mean we get, more Jacoby Myers? Could we get Ramondre Stevenson catching some screen passes? Like, is there anything there?
Except they freaking used Brandon Bolden in this last game.
Yeah. I don't think Stevenson is that. Yeah, it's Bolden, not Stevenson. I think maybe Myers, but Myers has no touchdown equity. Hunter Henry feels like, okay, maybe.
Hunter Henry feels like a great differential, actually.
Yeah. And I think this 4%'s about right. Like people aren't gonna be excited to click Hunter Henry.
Man, the weather John brings up, it's looking bad in New England. Cold plus wind. We just saw New England do the 3 pass attempt game against Buffalo and beat them. Like that's how they're designed to play football. It's just like run every single play.
Right.
And the Bills that's a tougher spot for the Bills, man. New England's that dead? I don't know.
I don't think they're that dead. I mean, the chances of advancing, I think, are like 12% or something. Sorry, not of advancing, but chances of making the Super Bowl are like 12%. They're going to be overfaded relative to their chances of making a run.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's interesting, too, just how people are thinking through the Bills as it relates to the Patriots, because I think everyone's assuming the Bills win, but they're still not necessarily excited to play the Bills against the Patriots, which brings me back to Davis's initial point about Mahomes really separating from Allen. Just if people are like, oh, what if I get a so-so game out of Allen in round 1 where people feel pretty confident that Mahomes is going to light up the Chiefs or the Steelers.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think the Allen stuff is outdated from the point about the bye being really key. For Mahomes this year.
All right. Let's head over to
Eagles. Another quick one.
Yeah. So
Philly fade.
I think Goddard is pretty interesting. because that allows you to not use Gronk, Kelsey, like the Tampa. We haven't got to Tampa Bay yet, but Tampa Bay is pretty interesting, and Gronk does look like one of their stronger plays. I think Goddard is. They're definitely not going to win though.
There's a lot of tight ends. I mean, you mentioned not playing Gronk, Kelsey, but also like Waller's in this, Kittle's in this. We talked about Schultz, Ertz. Like, there's a lot of freaking tight ends. I could see Goddard, but it's like you lose a little bit of the benefit of like if he has a good game, then he's probably the right tight end because there's going to be tight ends who advance and play multiple games, and so it's just hard.
Nothing.
Yeah. And the Eagles are interesting because they're almost like 1-for-1 in terms of figuring out the projections for this. I just literally went and looked at Washington last year because you have Logan Thomas was the clear play. No one was betting on Washington to advance. You had Terry McLaurin as the clear number one receiver. He came in at 3%. You've got Gibson came in at, I think, 2%. J.D. McKissick came in at 2%. So that's how you get Miles Sanders 4. And then Logan Thomas, I think, was like 10. And I feel like Goddard might be slightly more popular. So
that to me from a projection standpoint makes sense as a comp, but I mean, people are really down on the Bucs, and I think they're pretty spooked about this version of the Bucs without Godwin and AB. At least in my head, I'm thinking the Eagles are decently live. I don't know if the field catches up to that, but it does make me more interested in the Eagles than I otherwise would be.
Yeah.
And I agree with Davis that like the way to play that, if you think you're getting an Eagles upset, I mean, isn't Goddard just kind of the obvious play in that case?
Yeah. If you get 2 games out of Goddard, he looks great.
Yeah, I think Goddard. I think basically Goddard will catch. Sanders might be high. This might be like Sanders 1, Goddard 15 or something. But, the point remains that Goddard's basically going to catch all of the skill player ownership here, I think.
Yeah, and the Eagles backfield is like the exaggerated version of the Cardinals one, where it's like not only do we have kind of uncertainty, they're saying, Howard and Sanders will both be back, but like no one is necessarily excited about either of these guys.
No, and yeah, Charlie points out Daigle mentions Miles Sanders. That's an interesting play, but I don't think it'll be popular. Just because you also have Howard is going to be active for this game, so that'll be, I think, 5% or lower.
Yeah. All right, we are on to Pittsburgh here, another team that everyone is lining up to fade.
Even Najee at 28 seems crazy.
Well, so Najee was tough because Chubb came in, like I said earlier, at 32%. Dobbins, I think, was 26%, which seemed like, somewhat decent comps. But then Akers was 10% last year. You could see that, you could see Najee like being way over projected at 28%, but
no,
I don't know. I think
I get it. I
talked Pat up on this a little bit. Part of the reason, I think, Pat, your initial was like lower 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think I had him like 22, something like that.
Part of my thought was, number one, the running back position is light, and Harris was a guy who, go all the way back to August, we were drafting the 1-2 turn, and he was good enough all year that, especially late, that I think people, especially the boomers who don't really look at skill that much, like I think looked at Jonathan Taylor a lot differently last year because he was such a better prospect. I think people are like, Harris has actually been rushing efficiently in the last couple of weeks. And I think people are like thinking, like, they're talking about him as a top 5 pick next year. They're thinking about him similarly to Jonathan Taylor at this time last year, basically, which to me seems crazy. I think probably to all of you guys seems a little bit crazy, but there's a little bit of that. And then the other side of it that I pointed out was that Pitt last year in a loss in the wild card round had that huge shootout. And that kind of lingers a little bit. All their guys got there. Claypool had the 2 touchdown game. Juju had the big game. Deontay had a big game. They're like a hard. I think their fade percentage is right here, but I don't think they'll be like 70% faded because they still everything's concentrated. People love the Harris workload. People love the Deontay targets.
Yeah.
And to that point, so I pasted in 2.5% chance of making the Super Bowl, but I have them not that high faded. Compared to, I think Washington was the lowest last year, 82% faded. So I think they'll be overplayed in a sense. If you get the shootout, it's not overplayed, but they'll definitely be overplayed relative to the chances of advancing or making a big run.
Yeah. The other thing too, I'm wondering if playing that game as a shootout is going to end up being a little bit contrarian. You know, Evan mentioned Deontay in the chat. I kind of like that thought too. I mean, I could totally see like this having the vibes of the Cleveland.
Yeah, I'd definitely rather play
Pittsburgh game.
Deontay than Najee in the way this game plays out.
What's your take on Deontay's ownership there, Dave? Do you think that's right?
I mean, to me, like I just went through and made like a little rough draft team, and Deontay was the Steeler that I clicked through. But I think probably in the end, I will just not play a Steeler at all. Like it just, well, I don't know. It gets kind of close because it's like, I don't know, would I rather fade Philadelphia or Pittsburgh? I don't know. It's pretty close. Those are two. But I like the Raiders more than the Steelers, which I think is maybe where I disagree with the market.
So people in the comments here are saying Pittsburgh defense feels low. Charlie's talking about Boswell kicking a bunch of field goals. What do you think about the DST and Boswell? And do you think people will play those guys instead of fading them, or ultimately land on like Boswell instead of clicking Najee?
See, yeah. I feel like the soft fade of the Steelers makes no sense. Because
that's kind of what where I was.
They're just gonna get boat raced. Like it's not like and so obviously the defense is not gonna do anything getting boat raced, and you don't go to Arrowhead and kick field goals. So it just feels like either you play Deontay, Najee, or Claypool or Freiermuth or whatever. Freiermuth maybe.
I love
Deontay
is probably one of my favorite plays in the whole tournament.
Deontay seems good.
It's Mookie has a great point here. This is the other thing I was saying to you, Pat, earlier, was this is going to be Ben's final game of his career because they're going to get their ass kicked, and then they're going to let him throw 50 times because they're going to be like, you're going to go out.
They already tried to do this, by the way. They tried to do it in his final home game. He threw 48 passes, and it was really bad. It was
right.
just
That's
really
53 for 189 yards. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. So a couple of points on the Najee thing. 2 years ago, Derrick Henry was massive chalk, and A.J. Brown, during his breakout rookie season where he was just like crushing down the stretch, came in at 6%. Jarvis Landry last year came in at 6% with Nick Chubb at 32%. So I think Deontay is a little bit different. Last year, Allen Robinson actually came in slightly above David Montgomery. Both were in the teens. But I feel like sentiment around Najee is sort of closer to Chubb than David Montgomery last year. And so Johnson will be in the teens, I think. But it's
sentiment around Deontay is a lot closer to what A-Rob was last year than Landry. No one ever wants to play Landry in anything.
Yeah, people really like Deontay Johnson.
But
I think it's Matt Harmon.
Even A-Rob was, I think he was like 17 or 18% last year. So this is
this seems right. Yeah,
maybe I'll go 17 and 27 or 26.
This is how the sausage gets made, folks.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's good. I still want to play Deontay.
All right. Then I'm not too high.
Are we to San Francisco?
Yeah. Let me get that up.
This is where we get even on Trey Lance, everybody.
No. This is how I'm coping. I initially in some of the underdog drafts at the very end, I would take both Jimmy G and Lance, and now I'm finally just taking Jimmy G. Like I can't get hurt like this again, Davis.
Well, DraftKings has a 20-round playoff best ball, so you can take Trey Lance.
Love it.
It was like their back-end developer was like, this would be too much work to change.
They just copy and pasted. They just copied. They had to have.
So ridiculous. San Francisco's fun though for this contest.
Eli Mitchell, feed it to me, bro. Eli Mitchell is just a stone smash here.
Well, so Eli Mitchell's interesting because you can play this as, a shootout, but San Francisco, I think, is not going to be like super popular to beat Dallas. In the show yesterday, I picked Dallas D, and people were like, wow, that's really contrarian. Now maybe it's contrarian because you'd rather just play it as a shootout. But San Francisco, only 8% chance to make the Super Bowl. So my guess is that people are going to be more interested in Debo and Kittle because you're looking at like a 2-game run is, most realistic. 1-game run is most realistic, but probably not 3. That was my thinking in having Mitchell down 11%.
Yeah. I'm trying to get in the mind of, Kittle, he had that explosion game. I guess Eli Mitchell hasn't been at where his highs were. For me, I feel like the field will be more excited about Mitchell compared to Kittle, but I don't know.
But Kittle fulfills the tight end stuff, and people will play him some in flex, the double tight end. I don't know. People love Debo. I wonder if Debo will be a little bit more and Gold a little bit less.
Yeah, you need to fade somehow, and I feel like I don't think you're going to get a ton of just straight fade. That's why I have Gold and the D a little bit higher than it probably feels comfortable. But I don't know. Maybe people just don't fade San Francisco. Although if you look at
that's what I was thinking. I don't think San Francisco is a good fade at all because plenty of their guys can get there in a loss, and I think they're drawing fairly live to beat Dallas.
I have them like relative to the chances of going to the Super Bowl. I have them as like by far the lowest faded. Yeah. So I have that baked into to a degree, but it's like I don't want to necessarily project them for only like 35% faded. Just given that a lot of people I assume would pick them to lose this game.
Sure, that makes sense.
All right,
but you guys are thinking like I don't know, maybe if we did like Kittle 18.
I just think this is one of those spots where the market won't be rational. Like the market is not going to rationally treat the 49ers like a team that's going to have to go on the road for all these games or whatever. Like they're just going to be like, these guys score points.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to lower the total fades on San Francisco, I think is one way. Because it's tough for me to think Kittle's below like 18. That feels like kind of the floor for him. I mean, it's George Kittle. And he had like a gigantic game a couple weeks ago.
And same thing for Debo. Like it's Debo. Debo was like one of the, like him and Kupp were like the two big like guys you had to have to win money this year.
Yeah. The one thing I kind of agree that maybe even SF fade comes in a little lower just because people are going to want pieces of this game. And I think it'll feel comfy for people to kind of hedge like, oh, what if this is a shootout and the 49ers pull it off?
That's a great point. Cause it is a more likely one to win. It's Davis's Raiders point where that line's closer than the Raiders are getting played. But in this case, like people are excited about San Fran's offense and San Fran can win. So they're going to play both sides of it.
Yep. All right. But it's like tough because then there's some other spots where we talked about the fades being really high, but this is why. It's because San Francisco should be probably 55% faded just based on, around 50 to 55%. Based on their 8% chance to make Super Bowl. It sounds like we're going to have them at like below 40% for sure. So that pushes up.
But I mean, just think about making a team. Like, are you going to fade 49ers on any team you make?
But Pat, they have the closest line of the wild card rounds of any underdog. So you're looking at their chance to make the Super Bowl.
I make the chance to make the Super Bowl. Yeah.
The Super Bowl stuff is the way it is because they have to go on the road against really good teams.
But but the fade percentage is more about can they just play a second game, really, right? If they play 2 games, they're probably you don't want to fade.
Yeah, you don't want to fade them. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, we are on to what? Tampa. Tampa's a real interesting team.
So Fournette's popping in the projections. Looked at a couple of different projections. He's coming as like the play of the tournament on ETR. He's the highest ranked guy overall. But I think Gronk is an awesome play, and then Evans is an awesome play. So I actually wonder if maybe Brady needs to come down to get some more Gronk and Evans in, but and probably will because I'm going to have Mahomes coming up. But yeah, I didn't necessarily think that I would have I thought about Gronk potentially being the chalk, but again, this running back stuff and the projections, I think it's going to be Fournette.
I do agree that people are going to play it through these big 3. It's now kind of a condensed offense, and sentiment on Brady is pretty low after this finish these past couple weeks.
Where do you guys think? Because Eric mentioning, didn't expect to see Lenny that high after missing that many weeks, and we'll get to
That
Tennessee
will be
here
interesting,
in a second.
I think.
But it's a real test of the projection. Like, how much are people leaning on projections? Because I think basically any projections that you look at are going to have Lenny very high.
Yeah. I think that as long as we get, Leonard Fournette full practice, Bruce Arians says like, Lombardi Lenny, he feels great. If we get one positive NBC Sports Edge blurb on Leonard Fournette's availability, I think Tom Brady looks so low to me.
Really, he looks low already.
I mean, maybe not low in terms of how he's projected, but just low in terms of like, he's Tampa Tommy. He's 4 rings Tommy. This guy, he's gonna get 4 games. He's gonna win the Super Bowl and ride off.
He was 10% last year.
4 rings
only 10% last year.
Undersells how many Super Bowls he's won.
That's way less than he has.
He's got 6, right?
Yeah,
he's definitely got more than 4.
I just think now losing both those guys, like if you would have just lost one of AB or Godwin, I think people would have been ready to ride with Brady. And I think people are spooked and they're like, why take the risk? I can just get bell cow Lenny, Gronk tight end premium, or Evans alpha wide receiver.
Yeah, and I knew this guy who even played Cyril Grayson in Cash last week. So
we've moved on. Cash week is over. Thank God.
Yeah, I was even seeing some like stuff on Tampa Bay Twitter. They were like, at least we got our Super Bowl last year. They're like, I think the run's already over. Yeah.
Reminds me of the old days when you used to grind the Tampa Bay podcast circuit.
Yeah, when he would be listening to the Pewter Report podcast for Rojo updates.
They hated him, man. Pewter Report always hated Rojo. So.
Well, I think that was a universally held opinion in Tampa Bay.
It was especially Pewter Report. They were more open-minded on the other one.
Titans
to close it out.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear ye. Let's make all of our money on AJ Brown.
So this is another one where Derrick Henry's a leap of faith, but I think I could need to change this one in a major way as the week goes on. This could flip because so far projections aren't that bullish on Henry. I think we need more than just like one nice news report about Henry for this to hold. So this could very easily flip, but we're not going to get any information on him because they're on a bye. Yeah, I guess that's true.
That's a good point.
Yeah. All right. Well, then maybe I need to get this like closer to.
But this is unstoppable force meets immovable object because people are very excited to line up to play Derrick Henry. Again, in the underdog, he's the number 1 running back off the board in those drafts. He's going in the beginning of the 2nd round now. To me, it seems like people are just banking on the fact that he's back and ready to rock.
I think the fact that we're not going to get any news this week actually works to keep his ownership up. No one's going to think there's anything wrong. They're just going to be assuming that next week it's all going to be good to go.
Okay, so I have a question. Who is Tennessee most likely to play?
Cincy.
Yeah, Cincy.
Or Vegas.
Yeah, because 2-3 would be KC Bills, and then 1-4 would be Tennessee Bengals.
But if they get, they could get the Patriots. If
the Patriots win, then it would be Bengals KC, which would be hot.
Someone talk me out of Tennessee as the fade.
David Kitchen.
That was one of the first things I said to these guys this week. Was like low key, a bye team would be a really interesting fade.
So does anyone on earth even believe Tennessee deserves to get the bye? Even the Tennessee Titans are like, we should give it to Kansas City.
I think the thing with if this holds, then AJ Brown is your Tennessee fade. Right?
Yeah, he's just a smash.
Yeah, you're hoping you get Cincy in round 2. Cincy beats them, but Brown goes off.
But they can definitely lose in a way where Henry's not particularly healthy. Doesn't perform well, obviously, but then also, Brown doesn't necessarily have a big game, right?
They can.
We know that
they totally can. Yeah, and maybe I'm light on the fades, but again, the bye teams just weren't faded last year. Maybe people feel differently about Tennessee, but I don't know. I mean, I think Henry's going to be Henry's very popular, and then we're excited to play AJ Brown. So who's who's actually like, no,
Yeah,
I'd rather
I'm
play
not actually
Josh
gonna fade.
Jacobs.
I'm not actually going to fade them, but
That's
they
kind
are.
of, that's kind of how I feel. We could talk about it, but we won't do it.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if New England wins, that's the one I'll say. If you play New England to win a New England Tennessee round 2 game, that game, I would want to be, overweight on Tennessee fading. If New England was able to beat them, like that's going to be a slow shitty.
Yeah, that game's gonna suck.
That game's gonna suck. Yeah, and I think that's something.
Did you guys just put a Titans Patriots game out into the ether?
It's possible.
We did.
I mean, it's not that far fetched, David.
Literally, why would they ruin our playoffs that way?
You just talked about the Bengals losing.
Yeah.
So, oh man, if we get Raiders and Patriots advancing after round 1.
Oh my
do
God. You're gonna run the ball 100 times in that game. Yeah, I can't see much past the Henry Brown fade. Like, I mean, what sicko's clicking Julio Jones? I mean, is Leone making a lineup on his own so he can just put
Leone-
Yeah, this
Leone-
was for Leone specifically. I figured
Leone's doing one in the 200, and he's like, I don't care. I'm playing Tyler Boyd and Julio
AJ
Jones.
Green and
Yeah.
Julio Jones. The geriatric build. Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other, if we want to get into Galaxy Brain territory here, like Davis mentioned with like the Pollard or the AJ Dillon play of like, what if Derrick Henry just isn't ready and it's Donta Foreman at 1%.
I mean, it's like a foot injury on like a 250-pound man. Like, I can certainly see him not being good to go.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I should just include Foreman just to.
I have I've tossed Foreman in the 10th round of the underdog ones.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is a little bit more Tennessee fade.
Yeah.
Now, do you think if people do fade Tennessee, do they play that as Bullock or do they play it as a straight fade? There's a lot of kicker options. I feel like they might just straight fade it.
If people knew or were projecting the Patriots to go, I think people would be excited to play Tennessee as the defense. But I guess people should be more excited, right? Because if the Bills win and the Bengals, like Tennessee at home versus the Bengals, that's a nice defensive spot for Tennessee there too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe Tennessee defense will catch them. I'm just trying to think how through people actually fading them. Which is like, this is higher relative to where they were last. Like 5% is actually pretty high for a team with a bye. But
also, Pat, I think it'd be directly correlated if we somehow get some uncertainty around Henry or just something that isn't super bullish. Like, you just pull away from Henry to fade because the Boomers are going to be like, I'm either playing Derrick Henry or I'm not touching this godforsaken team.
Right. That's right. Oh, that's
the
funny.
Boomers.
Yeah.
The Boomers do not love AJ Brown the way we do.
Give me Derrick Henry or give me death.
It is funny that the Boomers don't love AJ Brown because he's a massive target hog. Like, he kind of fits.
You just would not understand, dude. You don't get it.
I don't get it. That's what I'm saying.
He's too flashy, dude. He's too flashy with the Gucci headband.
Huh. Yeah, because you're right. Adams isn't really that flashy. Adams has a whole thing about just run routes. Don't do these drills. Don't post on Instagram. Just run routes. That's a Boomer take.
I saw a great Boomer thing with Devontae Adams the other day. The Packers beat writers were praising him because he was on his phone during, media availability or whatever, and people were like, "Oh, he's being an asshole." And he was bringing up game film to show them like a route concept. So the Boomers were like, "Oh my God, Devontae Adams, he is just a football genius. He's just." And I'm just like, that's cool that he did that, but I hate all of you so much.
Yeah. To be clear, I like Devontae Adams, and I like that he runs a lot of routes. And talk about a guy that like revived his career. He almost had like the N'Keal Harry washout. It was looking pretty bad there.
It's true.
And then he became the best wide receiver in the NFL.
People forget that. So just remember that the next time you're making fun of my McCall Hardman bags. Could be the next Devontae Adams.
Or LaVisca. You watch yourself. You watch yourself out there.
Honestly, actually very similar.
Oh, please, no, I can't do this right now. Let us heal.
We're not healing yet.
Let's build a lineup.
Pac-12 early declares. That's all I'm saying, Pete.
Yeah.
Adams was Fresno State, but still very similar. I will give you that.
Isn't Fresno State in the Pac-12? Or they
no,
not?
it's Mac. He's Mac.
I was gonna say, imagine thinking I know which conferences players went to, but Davis doesn't know either.
I didn't know either.
Davis is one of those Midwest guys that just doesn't even think the Pac-12 exists. See that Husky helmet over my shoulder here?
Buddy,
the Pac-12 is a legitimate Power 5 conference.
Buddy, it doesn't even exist. Come on.
Oh God, here we go. Okay, Boomer. All right, Davis, you're a guest of honor. We built a lineup with Daigle. I think we're going to keep this tradition going at the end of each of our shows this week. Who do you want?
Well, I said Patrick Mahomes was the best play in the entire tournament, so I'll take Patrick Mahomes.
All right, Mahomes. Gretch, you're up next.
I'll take Deontay. I was excited about that. If we're taking Mahomes, we'll go a shootout round 1.
Yep, that's a good.
That's a good.
I'm on board.
Where are you, Deontay?
He's running a Tyreek there. The gray
Okay,
one.
there we go. Pat, your turn.
I kind of just feel like let's go Gronk.
This is a 100% overlap with the team I just built while we were going through this thus far.
I want to do, after seeing those percentages, I want to play the Eli Mitchell.
Still a 100% overlap with the team I just built.
This is good.
And I think Pete's 100% in selecting Eli Mitchell in these two.
Oh, did I take him yesterday?
He's such a good play.
I do, Pat. It's my DFS thing where I've already done the Men in Black erased my brain for whatever we did yesterday. So
I remember we had him in that lineup. I'm pretty sure. So
okay, because it was against Dallas D. You're right.
Yeah.
All right. Whatever. It is what it is. I can't change it now. All right. Back to
no.
Davis.
I just thought it was interesting.
Or no. Yeah. Pat did Gronk.
I will take T. Higgins.
Ooh.
I was going to take T. Higgins when I took Gronk. I thought about it. I think T. Higgins is really interesting. I think it's kind of the squeeze that we talk about in DFS. Like, how does T. Higgins get steamed? You know?
Exactly. People will just take Chase.
They will.
All right, Gretch.
I feel like we're barreling towards a Derrick Henry team.
Oh no.
No. No. Stop.
Gretch,
Higgins, you're not probably playing the Bengals to make a super deep run. We already have Mahomes out of the AFC, but that doesn't go through Tennessee. How do we get away from it?
I think Higgins works in either scenario, a win or a loss. You could get the spike game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he does, but over multiple games, I think like Mixon gets more interesting, and yeah, I mean we don't have to play Henry, but they're like I feel like we're leaning towards Titans winning.
Why would we not play AJ Brown?
Yeah, we can.
Right.
I didn't want to make your pick for you, but
I will take. Damn, I'm looking at the bracket. Like, what games don't we have right now? We have Tampa. I mean, Cup and Adams are just like obvious picks at this point already.
Yeah.
I'll just take Cup again. I'm just gonna do this on every show all week.
Wow.
I love it.
No one can fault you. You are completely immune from criticism.
All right.
Pat.
I'm very excited for this pick. Darren Waller.
Ooh.
It's gonna make some tough fades. We got some tough fades coming here, but we got a Steeler and a Raider. But I mean, you just
pushed us further towards Derrick Henry in my mind.
No, I think I pushed us towards a Tennessee fade is what I was hoping. But
yeah, and I'm gonna just go ahead and toss Diggs in.
Well,
I mean, if either the Bengals or the Raiders win and then beat the Titans, you don't think Mixon and Jacobs make a lot of sense there?
I was gonna take Singletary. Now I can't. There's only one guy that we can take.
It's Derrick Henry.
No, it's Fat Zeke.
Wait, so who are our fades? We got to figure out.
You just click buttons until the fades revealed.
You guys are just taking all the fun plays and leaving me Devontae Adams.
Our fades right now are Philadelphia, Arizona,
New England,
and Green. And we
we
don't have.
We just took Adams though.
Yeah.
Well, I assume that's who you said.
It has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, this is already pretty over leveraged. You can eat the Adams.
You got to take Adams at that point. Yeah.
So who's our place kicker in defense?
Who cares?
We need
Prater for
Why,
sure.
Davis? Is there maybe a old SNL
Yeah.
sketch?
No, don't, dude. That was one of the worst experiences because I thought I had this like treasured memory and no one remembered it. It was so funny to me.
That
And
is a
then I
bummer.
and then I rewatched it, and of course it was not like it was funny, but it wasn't as funny as I remember it. Like I remember this like very drawn out Jesus with this weird Southern accent, and that's not how it played out. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The real reason to take Prater is that
How
clip is
stoned were
just
you when you watched that SNL skit the first time?
probably pretty stoned, I would imagine. But the real reason is that Cliff is just begging to kick 5 field goals against the Los Angeles Rams in a playoff game.
He can't wait to do it.
Yeah.
All right. And which defense did we say?
Titans? Patriots?
I feel like the Patriots, I feel like we do it. I feel like we actually do the Tennessee fade we were just talking about.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Yep. All right. There it is.
Diggs, Buffalo's had to throw it.
Can we see it for a second? Pull it back
Yeah.
up. This is a fun one. The Tennessee fade. I feel like this is pretty off the board.
Let me know who I need to send $5 of Ethereum to, so that I can get my share when we get paid out here.
Davis, this one's
So this is on
me.
this one's on ETH. What are we doing? The 35 then?
Yes, I registered 5
That was a
teams.
crypto's crashing too.
Oh, yes, Davis, you could send me a Penguin Fight Club NFT for this one.
I don't have any left. They're all for sale on looksrare.com now to earn my looks token.
That's right. Well, thank you, Davis, for joining us today. Like we said, we are going to be here every day this week doing FFPC Playoff Challenge content. We'll be back. The next 3 nights are all going to be at our usual time of 9:15 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow we have the Boomer Opto with Hasan and Blair. Thursday, we have Shawn Siegele joining us to talk some Galaxy Brain angles. And then Friday, of course, capping it off with Leone and Dink, our drunk build, trying to recapture the magic from last year. Also, Pat will be sharing his ownership projection spreadsheet in the Ship Chasing Discord. You can get access to that by becoming a YouTube member and then sync it with your Discord account, and it will unlock that channel. Anything else I am forgetting here, fellas?
Nope.
No.
All right. Well, that is it for Davis, for Gretch, for Pat. I'm Pete. We'll see you guys tomorrow.